Okay, so we're 5 minutes after the hour. We're going to go ahead and start the recording. This is the community meeting regarding the Stormwater Quality Master Plan, and I'll let you go ahead and get started.
Hello, everyone. Just trying to start my video. Hi, I'm Kim Braun, the Environmental Programs and Operations Manager in the Public Works Department for this city of Culver City. And welcome to the Stormwater Quality Master Plan Community Meeting. We have a great presentation planned for you this evening. But before we get started, I want to introduce you to our city representatives in attendance this evening. We have Sean Singletary. He's the Senior Civil Engineer in the Environmental Programs and Operations Division. With us is Chanel Kincaid, Senior Management Analyst in the Environmental Programs and Operations Division. Excuse me, Alicia E., the Management Analyst in the Public Works Department. Valerie Perez, IT Analyst in the Information Technology Department. And then also with us tonight is our consultants who developed our Stormwater Quality Master Plan for the city. First, we have Jessica Kassman from Blue Ocean Consulting, Dave Mercier from Michael Baker International, Elizabeth Cox with Katz and Associates, and although not represented tonight, we also have another consultant from a company known as Paradigm. So the city has developed a draft Stormwater Quality Master Plan, and this master plan is a customized planning tool that can be used to support stormwater quality compliance strategy, help prioritize project implementation and spending, and maximize our grant funding opportunities. Capturing and managing stormwater is needed to comply with many regulatory requirements from the federal government all the way through to local Culver City. So the city is presenting to you tonight to seek your community input on the draft master plan and the priority project opportunities identified within the draft master plan. With all of this being said, I'm gonna let the screen go to Jessica so she can start our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Let me get it up here. Thank you all for being here today. We'd like to show you what we've been up to with the Stormwater Quality Master Plan. All right, can everybody see it?
Yep.
Great.
Yes, you can see.
So getting into the background about why we made the Stormwater Quality Master Plan. When it rains, water flows over all of the city surfaces, the roads, the gutters, the alleys, the sidewalks, and it picks up pollutants along the way. Culver City is mostly located within the Bayona Creek watershed. And in this watershed, we're mostly concerned about heavy metals and bacteria. And heavy metals are really sources include cars and industry, and then bacteria sources would include animal and human wastes. But these pollutants are carried by the water into the storm drain systems and eventually into Bayona Creek and then the Pacific Ocean at Marina del Rey. And when we talk about stormwater quality or stormwater runoff, what we're also talking about is urban runoff, which results from dry weather flows from things like washing cars and overwatering, but water from these activities makes the same way to Bayona Creek and the ocean just in dry weather. And the pollutants that it picks up along the way are conveyed into the receiving water bodies, and then they become a risk to human and animal life. And it's because of this that stormwater runoff is regulated. And it's regulated, like Kim said, from the federal level all the way down to the local level. And it's regulated to protect public health and the environment. So most of Culver City, as you can see here, lies in the Bayona Creek watershed. The cities and portions of LA that discharge into Bayona Creek are not allowed to cause or contribute to the impairments of Bayona Creek. And so the permit that regulates the discharge is called the MS4 permit, the multiple separate storm sewer system permit. And we can think of this as like the storm drain permit, but it is part of the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit program. So what is an impairment, and how can we make sure we're not causing or contributing, and how can we show that we are in compliance with our permits? And these are all really great questions with a lot of different answers, but all of the cities and portions of LA County within the Bayona Creek watershed kind of came together, asked those same questions. They formed the Bayona Creek Enhanced Watershed Management Program, the EWMP. And the study they did on behalf of the watershed was meant to simplify what it means to comply. And the study determined specific compliance targets for each of the cities and portions of LA County that are members of this watershed. And they determined that if each of the cities meets these compliance targets, they can be reasonably assured of complying. What that means is that for Culver City, the compliance target was set at 99 acre-feet of stormwater volume. So this means that if city can manage 99 acre-feet of stormwater during a rain event, they can be reasonably assured that they are complying with their permits. And that's a bit abstract. So in rough context, 99 acre-feet would be like filling up a football field about 99 feet high. It's a lot of water, but that is what the city's regulatory obligation is. There's a couple different ways that permits specify stormwater can be managed. We're going to be talking about BMPs throughout this presentation, and what those are best management practices, but we can think of them as projects or treatment systems. And so the first type is going to be the infiltration BMPs. And what these do is they capture water for infiltration to the ground or groundwater sources. We can also use capture and reuse BMPs, which capture the water and then reuse it for things like irrigation or indoor plumbing or another beneficial use. And then the last type would be treatment BMPs, which capture the water, treat it to a certain water quality, and then release it back into the storm drain system. And the MS4 permit does require that private developers and owners also implement BMPs on a parcel by parcel scale. But Culver City voters passed Measure CW, which is a parcel tax meant for publicly funded pollution reducing projects in November of 2016. Some of the ways that the public funding can be used is to keep things like storm drains, streets, and catch basins clean. It can also be used to provide education and outreach activities. It can be used to construct projects, and it was used to develop the Stormwater Quality Master Plan. Culver City has already done a lot of things to make great progress towards that 99 acre-feet. The Washington Boulevard project is currently in design, set to start construction in January of 2022. This is a public-private partnership with Costco, and it enabled the city to meet its regulatory obligations for the Marina Del Rey watershed. So that's kind of why this Stormwater Quality Master Plan only addresses the Bayona Creek watershed. Culver City is already taking care of what they need to for Marina Del Rey. And as you're probably familiar with, this Culver Boulevard project is currently in progress, and it accounts for a good portion of that 99 acre-foot target. Both of these projects really came and materialized out of convenience. The partnership with Costco was an opportunity the city recognized as it was in development. And then the Culver Boulevard project, I think, was meant just to be a realignment project, but the city said, hey, wait, we've got this other regional project that if we combine them would be really efficient. So going forward, the city was interested in making more of a formalized plan to take advantage of these types of efficiencies easier and more frequently. And so that formalized plan is the Stormwater Quality Master Plan. Like Kim was saying, it does provide a pathway towards compliance that is specific to Culver City. It provides some decision-making tools about which projects to move forward, some funding strategies, and probably will become some type of regulatory support. And it's also a good starting place for community involvement. So to start off, the Stormwater Quality Master Plan analysis overlaid a lot of city-specific data. So a lot of this data included soil type, groundwater depth, topography, parcel ownership, and in this way we could find potential project opportunities. It was also used to determine what types of BMPs or projects were best suited for which location. And in total, 441 project opportunities were identified, and that makes up about 69 acre-feet of potential project storage in the public right-of-way. After all the projects were identified, we took the projects and ran them through a prioritization matrix. Using site suitability, multi-benefit, and capacity metrics, we were able to give each project a score. And in that way, we could compare projects to other projects, even across the different types of BMPs. We identified 10 regional opportunities. These are larger scale, on the scale comparable to the Culver Boulevard and Washington Boulevard projects. Since they're larger, these were mostly located in open spaces within the city, such as parks and schools. We also identified 297 Green Street type projects distributed throughout the city, and these would be linear projects located along the streets in the parkways, sort of like what you're looking at here to the right. And these are really grouped by streets and neighborhoods. So there are 297 groups of these Green Street type projects. And the last type we were looking at were low impact development projects. We found potential projects, 134 of them. In the context of this master plan, we're mostly talking about dry wells. And dry wells, what they are manhole structures with holes in the sides and in the bottom that allow water to be infiltrated throughout the soil profile. And these are great because they are pretty compact. They don't cause a lot of disturbance. They are fast to implement. They're very cost effective in terms of how much water they can manage, but they are restricted by the soil types and the groundwater levels below. So the 441 opportunities that we found were estimated to cost about $140 million. With Measure CW, the Culver City parcel tax, and the LA County Measure W funds, we have about $2.7 million annually for projects. So doing the math, that could take up to 50 years to construct the projects. And so to make progress, the city would need to determine, how best or which are the best projects to move forward and which should be prioritized. And to give the city flexibility, there are a couple of different ways to do that. One prioritization was based on cost efficiency. So which are the best projects to move forward that would fit into the available budget? And another way would be to determine which are the biggest projects that would get the city to compliance fastest. And then the multi-benefit prioritization identifies the best projects to be competitive for grant funding. Lastly, the interactive dashboard tool can help the city plan internally with other departments to find those efficiencies with co-locations of private developments or other capital improvement plans. We're going to look a little bit at what that dashboard looks like. Here we're looking at the top 10 most cost-effective projects. So which ones would fit into the budget? You'll notice they were mostly dry wells. So when we look at the dashboard, what we also see is a map. And when we click on one of the projects, when the fact sheet for that project will pop up, like what you're seeing here to the right. This is the highest cost-effective project, which is the dry well. It's estimated to cost $100,000 and then manage a quarter acre foot. Here we're looking at the top 10 largest capacity projects, and they're all the regional projects because those are the biggest ones. The largest one is the project opportunity located at the Culver City High School. Other regional projects include Veterans Park, Farragut Elementary, Lindbergh Park, and there are 2 dry wells on here. And these are the ones that will manage the most storm drain in one location, or most stormwater in one location. This slide is showing the top 10 highest scoring multi-benefit projects, with the project at Sid Cronenthal Park being the highest scorer. So when we talk about scoring high for multi-benefits, what we're talking about are some of the metrics we looked at. We looked at if they were located next or near the Bayona Creek and considered as part of the Bayona Creek Revitalization Plan. We looked at if the project would benefit the Urban Heat Island Index, or if the project was co-located with a known or proposed project within the city, or if it would be helpful in reducing localized urban flooding. Here we can see a snapshot of what the main dashboard looks like. It includes that map we talked about as the planning tool. So for instance, let's say there is a planned private development. The city can look at the map and determine easily if there's a water quality project located nearby and maybe a co-location opportunity, and then pursue a public-private partnership that way. Or maybe there is another street realignment or a utility maintenance project. Then we can quickly consult this map and see if we can combine the projects to be more efficient. And these charts also allow the city to track compliance progress and budget and spending throughout the BMP process. So we did mention that the total cost to construct all of the project opportunities was estimated to be $140 million, and that the annual budget is about $2.7 million, which means that the city will need to pursue additional funding. And the city will be able to use the materials developed as part of this master plan to get that grant funding and to pursue project partnerships and to make progress towards their compliance. So the next steps, we'll be looking to incorporate any public input on this draft master plan, and then look for potential adoption by the City Council in August. And at that point, the city can begin moving projects forward. And the city will select the projects based on a couple of different things, as the available budget, obviously, but also any planned capital improvement projects or proposed private projects to combine them, and then grant funding opportunities and the community input we receive. Once individual projects and specific projects are moved forward, there will be more opportunities for the public involvement at that point in the feasibility study phase, as well as the construction and design phase. But for now, more information can be found at the Culver City website, www.culvercity.org/SWQMP for Stormwater Quality Master Plan. And comments and questions can be submitted on that page under the section, What is a Stormwater Quality Master Plan? Or on the events registration page. And we had originally planned that questions and comments would be accepted until tomorrow. And I think if there are any questions now, Alicia will be monitoring the hands raised function. And I can send it back to Alicia at this point.
Great. If any of the attendees would like to ask a question or make a comment, you can raise your hand. Generally, you can find the hand symbol underneath, either underneath or next to your name if you put your mouse over your name in the attendees list. If you're on the phone, you can press *3 to raise your hand. In the interim, I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Of course.
When you talk about the infiltration projects, does that process clean the water? What happens to the pollutants as they make their way through the infiltration process?
Great question. I mean, a couple things can happen. I think the assumption is that it gets filtered through the soil profile. If it's bacteria, those bacteria can be taken up in biologic processes and removed that way. The heavy metals is a different type of pollutant. They can also be broken down by the biological process. But generally speaking, the water that makes it to the groundwater should be filtered through the materials before it gets there.
If you're unable to raise your hand, you can put your message, you can indicate that you'd like to speak in the chat box, and I can unmute you, and you can ask your question that way, or you can also send an email or complete the form, the comment form. You can always send an email to public.works@culvercity.org, and that mailbox is then forwarded to the appropriate staff member to respond. At this time, we don't have any questions or comments, so I don't know if there's anything else, Kim and Jessica, that you want to add to the presentation, or you want to wait a couple more minutes. Up to you.
Hi, Alicia. Thank you. Thank you for attending tonight, Emily and Thomas. It's very nice that you took the time to listen to our presentation. We've recorded this presentation, so it will be on our webpage, the same webpage that Jessica had listed before. And you can also send us emails or respond through the webpage if you review the presentation again. I just want you to know that if you get a chance to ride down Culver Boulevard between Ulinda and Sepulveda, you'll see the stormwater, the first really big stormwater project that is almost completed now in Culver City. And we're anticipating that to be fully completed by October 2021. And I also want you to be aware that in January of 2022, as Jessica had mentioned, we will be constructing a similar project with chambers under the street of Washington Boulevard between the two driveways of Costco, both the east and west entrances, and also on Glencoe Avenue north of Washington. These chambers will maintain the water. We will putting some medians in Washington Boulevard along with the Community Development Department, and that stormwater will be captured to irrigate those medians at a future date. And the remainder of the stormwater will then be diverted to our wastewater drains and sent to the Hyperion wastewater recovery system. So I thank you again for attending. You can always ask us questions at a later time. And if Alicia doesn't see any other ones, then this will conclude our meeting for this evening. And once again, we are available to answer any questions that may come up in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And so that brings us to the end of our presentation. The time is now 6:30, and I'm going to stop the recording.
Thank you, Alicia.